yeah, and go from there. So we left off, I provided you all the personal mission statement worksheet, right? You all have an opportunity to look through that and write your personal mission statement. So the goal will be to share that today. I'll start off with lecturing. I'll finish talking about at least what we learned from ancient Greece and ancient Rome. We'll make that, we'll travel a journey from there to now and make that connection between public speaking and democracy, public speaking and civic engagement, and then we'll transition, have you all share your personal mission statements and see how you've combined your values with some action verbs and sources of passion. So that will be the plan for tonight. We also will, in preparation for next week, either tonight or Wednesday, either tonight or Wednesday, we'll pair you up with a partner. We've not done that yet, have we? Paired up with a partner for the classmate introduction. So I guess my Tuesday, Thursday class is actually a day ahead of this class, whereas usually it's the opposite. So have to keep that in mind. So Monday's a day behind Tuesday, Thursday. So we'll do that. Have you all pair up, or groups of 2 or 3, in preparation for the classmate introduction, which is similar to what you all did with your self-introductions, except just a little bit more preparation in that you'll interview someone, get to know them, and then introduce them to class for next week. So we'll do that also, and give you some time in class to meet and talk with them, so you don't necessarily have to meet outside of class to complete that assignment. We have, kind of on that note, I'll share with you where we're at. We're kind of week 2, at least with the personal mission statement activity, due February 2nd. And so just a reminder that what you share in class today, just make sure you type it up or take a photo of it and post it on Brightspace, and then you'll get all of those points. Okay, so it's not showing up. So we'll just transition into Quintillian. So we were learning what at least ancient Greeks and Romans taught us in regards to public speaking, and a lot of what they laid as the foundation for the art and the science of public speaking we still use to this day. And so we've learned from Aristotle, logos, ethos, and pathos, the use of logic, the use of emotions, the use of credibility to persuade an audience. We've learned from Isocrates that you must learn other subjects before you can learn public speaking. So this concept of the prerequisite education model that we still use to this day. We learned from Corax of Syracuse way back in the 5th century BCE, right, that a speech has an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. And then we see Cicero continue that concept of how a speech is structured, how it's arranged is important. We have to pay attention to that. And so we learned not only that arrangement is important, but we learned 4 others in addition to that one as being Cicero's 5 canons, 5 requirements for speeches. Anybody remember what the other 4 are? So we have arrangement. Holler out another one. Style, exactly, style. So the way in which you, or the word choice that you choose. Yes, awesome. What's another one?
Memory.
Memory, exactly. So not so much memorization, but the internalization of your message as you prepare it. So awesome. All right, that's 3. What's another one? Cicero's 5 canons.
Invention.
Invention, precisely. So the way we create speeches are important. And this week we'll dive into the speech outlines, because the speech outlines that I provide you in this class incorporate centuries of how to write speeches into one document, and includes what we learned from these people as well. And then there was one more. What was the last one?
Delivery.
Delivery, precisely. So the way in which you deliver your speech is important. So again, we still teach Cicero's 5 canons. We may use a little bit different terminology, but they're basically the same. And so, so that is what we've learned from Cicero. So then we have, we transition from Cicero, who established the foundation of how we write speeches, to someone who was an educator who went more in depth into Cicero's 5 canons, and actually has his own, or it kind of expanded upon Cicero's 5 canons. So we actually distinguish sometimes between Cicero's 5 canons and Quintillian's 5 canons, but they're basically the same. He just goes deeper into what each of them represent. But he said something that I feel is particularly relevant in regards to the practice of public speaking. And Quintillian said this. He said, and I'm going to repeat this multiple times because I feel like it's that important. And then I'll interpret kind of the meaning of what he's trying to get at with this quote. So he said, "The mind is exercised by the variety and multiplicity of the subject matter, while the character is molded by the contemplation of virtue and vice." So what is he talking about here? He's talking about that when we engage, he's specifically referencing public speaking, oratory, rhetoric here. When we engage in oratory, in public speaking, we are exercising our minds. Just like we exercise other parts of our body to build strength, we exercise our mind through this act of creating, writing, rehearsing, delivering speeches. So he said, the mind is exercised by what? The variety and the multiplicity of the subject matter, because you have to know a lot of things in order to speak on them wisely and eloquently. Then you have to build this strength, this muscle that is the mind. And so it is strengthened by the variety and the multiplicity of the subjects that you have to know. In addition to developing our minds, this act of public speaking, this practice of public speaking also develops our character. The character is molded, and how do we mold our character? If we exercise our mind by the variety and multiplicity of the subjects that we can speak about, how do we mold our character? Well, it's by the contemplation of virtue and vice. So virtue and vice, what is good or bad, right or wrong, moral or immoral. When we contemplate those things, right, and take a position on those things, we are developing our character. And so in a lot of ways, specifically with our persuasive speeches, right, you're going to take a position on an issue, on a problem, right, and you are going to contemplate that and develop a speech to persuade us to join you in resolving this problem. And so through the act of public speaking, we not only exercise and strengthen our mind, but we mold our character. Man, isn't that powerful? Just this one activity, this one thing that you do develops so much of who you are and strengthens who you are. And that is why, one of the reasons why it is required of just about every college and university student in the United States to take this course. Because there is firm belief in this class developing not only your intellect, not only your mind, but molding your character. And so that's kind of, and still is, at the foundation of what we do in this course. So, in addition, Quintillian shares a few other things with us that are particularly relevant. So, during Quintillian's time, rhetoric was primarily composed of 3 aspects. It was primarily composed of the rhetorical, the theoretical, which is contemplating theoretical ideas. Go back here. Nope, I don't think that slide showed up. So he said, so during his time, rhetoric essentially was divided into 3 categories. The first was theoretical. So theoretical, we still have to this day, rhetorical theory, which is the theory behind what is persuasive, what is not persuasive, right? When we develop a speech, how do we go about writing it to be most effective? That is the theoretical. So during their time, the schools taught rhetorical theory, and we talk a little bit about theory, and you're introduced a little bit to theory in this course. The second aspect of rhetoric during this time was the educational, the teaching of students. And so what were they teaching students during this time? They were teaching them Cicero's 5 canons. That is how they taught and instructed students in the ways of rhetoric. And then the third is the practical. This is the practical use of public speaking during their time. That was in the courtroom, that was in the legislature, that was on the streets, politicians needing to gather support for various ideas and concepts. And so to this day, we still divide rhetoric, public speaking, into these three categories. We have the rhetorical side of things, where there are scholars that study rhetorical theory. When I started my graduate education, I was in the rhetorical theory side of things. I wanted to be a scholar of civil rights and social justice rhetoric. And so where I studied the writings and the speeches and everything in that category. We have the educational, being classes just like this one, and we have the practical, where you go out and use what you learn in this class in everyday life. So during Quintillian's day, it's also important to note that they saw rhetoric as a moral force, not moralless. So if we go back to Aristotle, Aristotle just saw it as a tool, right? Saw rhetoric as something you use to achieve a specific purpose. It's neither good or bad, right or wrong. It's just a tool, just like a hammer. It can be misused, but it itself is not bad. Well, for Quintillian, he said, no, we actually believe that rhetoric is a moral force, and we have to be conscious of moral goodness. And the orator must be a good person morally. And so here we have this addition, this kind of different perspective, in that if you're going to get up and speak before an audience, you have to be a morally good person. You have to have the audience's best interest at heart, their well-being at heart when you are speaking before them. And so it's an added level of responsibility than what Aristotle taught, right? And that you have a greater responsibility to be morally good when you are in this field of oratory. And so for them, moral goodness was just an integral part of public speaking and oratory. And for Quintillian, his goal was to develop orators who were ideal. The ideal Roman orator was someone who was virtuous, someone who was efficient, someone who was courageous, eloquent, and wise. And so you see this transition, again, not just as using public speaking as a tool, but using it for benefit, for positive benefit for the community, for society. And so we still, to this day, believe rhetoric can be used positively, even though the term rhetoric, at least in our modern day language, has kind of been skewed a little bit. It's often used to refer to things that are unethically persuasive. Oh, that's just a bunch of rhetoric, is a common phrase that we hear. Well, that's actually a misrepresentation of the word itself. Rhetoric being public speaking, rhetoric being, yes, per Aristotle's definition, the art of finding all available means of persuasion, but we believe it is something that is morally good, something that requires the speaker to be morally good. So, now we will finish, kind of conclude our trip to ancient Greece and ancient Rome. There have been others who, throughout time, throughout history, have really added to the field of rhetorical theory, the field of rhetorical education, and the practical use of rhetoric. For example, St. Augustine. There are plenty of those in the Middle Ages and in the Renaissance and modern times who essentially are Aristotelian rhetoricians. They essentially go back to the foundation of Aristotle's interpretation of rhetoric, the art of finding all available means of persuasion. But as time has evolved, so has what is considered rhetoric. So while in Aristotle and Quintillian's day, rhetoric was something that was a tool that was used to support the democracy, what is considered rhetoric today is more than just public speaking. In fact, we can often consider many writings, anything in print, to be persuasive. Therefore, it could be considered rhetoric. Music is something that can be persuasive, right, and really touch our emotions. So it too could be considered rhetoric. We also have theater and drama, which could be considered rhetorical in a sense, right? There are many playwrights who write in very specific messages and goals into the stage performances. In fact, drama itself traces its lineage back to ancient Greece, at least the art and study and discipline of drama can trace its history back to ancient Greece, and it kind of developed alongside rhetoric. So all of these, as well as really anything you consider to be persuasive, could be considered rhetoric. But I want to come back to, even though a lot of those things can be considered rhetorical, and we can examine them, we can study them, and see their influence on society, public speaking itself is still necessary and important for a democracy. And so again, from the very first democracy, Greece, public speaking was valued and necessary for that democracy to function. It was necessary to be able to articulate arguments, right, in self-defense in the court, to articulate facts and positions when debating in the legislative assembly. And so this connection between public speaking and democracy, the study and training of people in public speaking being essential to democracy, started in Greece and has been present throughout time. It's important to note, and I may have mentioned this previously, that while public speaking was studied in other places around the world, we really only have documentation, at least we have rigorous documentation from ancient Greece and ancient Rome. So it was studied in other places, but as far as tracing it back and actually reading original texts, we really only have those things from ancient Greece and ancient Rome. And again, while it was studied other places, it really was the emergence of public speaking training and teaching was really connected to democracy. You had other forms of government like monarchies, right, or tribal councils, or dictatorships, right, that all of which don't require the people to have a voice. The democracies are unique in that the people must have a voice and must be involved. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, a democracy is a government by the people. All right, it's that form of government in which the sovereign power resides in the people as a whole. And it's exercised either directly, right, or indirectly through various representatives. And that's what we have here. We have a representative democracy. We elect people to represent our voices in the legislature. We elect people who either are in the courts, or we elect people who then nominate others to go into the courts. And so we are directly involved, whether we realize it or not, in our democracy. And a democracy, because the people, the citizens, have to be involved, right, it cannot survive absent the people. So as I mentioned, public speaking was valued and was necessary for a democracy to function in ancient Greece. And the power that resides in the people is still there to this day. We still have the power to dictate and control, really, what happens in our democracy. The problem is citizens as a whole aren't necessarily trained in how to do that, right? How to speak up, how to use their voices to make positive change in our communities and in our society. And so we have to ask ourselves, because people, citizens, play a vital role in a democracy, if a democracy is failing or not functioning, then we must ask if the people are involved, right? To what degree are we involved in our democracy? And so it's important that we, as citizens, take this seriously and think about in what ways we can contribute to our democracy. And in a lot of ways, writing your personal mission statement is an opportunity to do that, to think about your contribution to society, your contribution to this democracy, and figuring out ways to connect what you're passionate about to helping the greater good. And so, with that being said, I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about democracy, talking a little bit about its, what we mean when we talk about civic engagement. And so, let's transition over to that. And I like to start by sharing what Theodore Roosevelt once said in regards to slideshow, full screen. So Theodore Roosevelt once said that the more you know about the past, the better prepared you are for the future. In a lot of ways, what we've learned from our forefathers, at least our rhetorical forefathers, we can apply to now and in the future. And so let's spend a little bit of time hashing out the importance of not only democracy, but our roles in democracy. And so I want us to examine the historical connections between public speaking and civic responsibility, and then spend the kind of just the bulk of this small lecture talking about how we can utilize what we know about the past to be better prepared today and in the future. So let's start with this concept of civic responsibility. So throughout history, at least the history of the United States, the history of all democracies actually, specific populations of people have been prevented from participating in that democracy. And, that could be based on religion, that could be based on race or ethnicity, based on gender. A variety of people have been excluded from the democratic process over time. And while that's improved, now any citizen can participate, we actually are seeing too few people actually take the time to participate in our democracy. And the term civic responsibility essentially means active participation in the public life of a community, being informed, committed, and helping in a constructive way with a focus on the common good. And so if our democracies are struggling, we have to come back to in what ways are we as citizens not doing our part. And so again, like I said, the mission statement is an opportunity to kind of narrow down that focus and to see how do you want to contribute to this society. It leads us back to also this concept of moral goodness that we learned from Quintillian, right? So moral goodness was an integral part to public speaking, and it was vital for effective self-governing. And the public speaker must be a good person morally, not just an effective public speaker. And so we must hold ourselves and our democratic leaders accountable for their moral and ethical decisions. That is part of being responsible citizens in a democracy. In a democracy, we must seek out the truth and not be satisfied with statements that are unsupported by fact. This search for truth really is in integrity, right? In ensuring that our leaders are committed to being ethical and moral leaders. And so it is our responsibility to make sure that we are sharing information and ideas that are truthful and positive and convince others of those ideas. So how can we do that? Well, I'm going to talk about a few ways. So this is how we can utilize what we learn in this class to really contribute to our democracy. So first, in fulfilling our civic duty, well, we can vote, we can speak up, and we can be a voice for the voiceless, and we can use our education and our voice to benefit and improve our society. The second point that I'll make is that public speaking, going through this process, as we've learned, it helps us develop our critical thinking skills so that we're better able to identify truth from what is true versus what is false, right? And then we should be advocating for diversity and multiculturalism, to have a diversity of views represented and in the various parts of our lives, because we know that we are stronger when we are more diverse. And then our personal mission statements, again, play a role in our being able to utilize, again, what we learn in this class with public speaking and apply it to our role in society. So first is fulfill our civic duty. Knowing that historically that people have been excluded from the process, knowing that historically people haven't been able to speak up, I think it's important for us to realize we have an obligation to ensure that people are able to speak freely and openly and truthfully. Free speech is a luxury that is not present in many places around the world. And so our democratic society does come with some responsibility to speak for ourselves and to speak for those who may not be able to speak for themselves, to stand up to those who may be trying to take freedoms away from us, and to stand up for those who may be marginalized or excluded. And so again, it's more than just voting, it's taking an active role in our community. So I ask you, in what ways do you do that? And in what ways do you want to do that more moving forward? in this class specifically, and when developing your public speaking skills, you also develop your critical thinking skills, right? Going through the process of reasoning, evaluating, problem solving, decision making, and then analyzing that, and then going through that process, you are developing your critical thinking skills, which you do throughout this class. For every speech, you are going through this process that is developing your critical thinking skills. And so, as a result, this prepares you to leave here better prepared to distinguish fact from opinion, from being able to judge the credibility of sources and assessing the quality of evidence that's presented and discerning the relationship among ideas. All these are skills that you develop while being a part of this class, but also these skills are vital when going out into the real world, right? Because we're constantly bombarded with messages, right? Messages, verbal, nonverbal, digital, right? Just bombarded with messages, and it can be hard to distinguish, right? Truth from fiction, truth from opinion. And so it's important, again, that we develop the skills to be able to discern for ourselves, right, what is truth. Now, we can always choose to believe a lie, right? We always have that option. Doesn't mean that's true, but if that's what we believe. But in this class, again, I would encourage you to take steps to develop your critical thinking skills so that you are better able to distinguish what is true versus what is false, that you take conscious effort in developing your ability to discern, right, what is a quality piece of evidence versus something that is just opinion. And so as we go through and learn about doing this in speeches, you're going to be better prepared to do this as a whole in your lives. And then this diversity and commitment to diversity and multiculturalism. So in this class, we have diverse experiences, diverse backgrounds that you're bringing to this class. And so, in many ways, this school, right, City Colleges of Chicago, Harold Washington College, right, advocates for a more diverse society, for more diverse groups. And the United States, as a whole, has become a more diverse society. It's really the most diverse that it's ever been throughout history. However, cultural diversity is not just a United States phenomenon, it's a global phenomenon. As specifically technology has grown and advanced, our ideas, our beliefs have spread, and we've shared a lot of who we are, and others have shared of who they are with us. And so we have a lot of cross-cultural interactions. And so the world that we now live in is much more diverse and multicultural than it was in previous decades, as a result of being able to communicate with people who are different from ourselves. And so, understanding, again, that throughout history, a lot of people have been excluded from democracy, have been marginalized based on their identity, and haven't been able to benefit from a democracy, right, because of their age, race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, ability, religion, right? All of those groups have been excluded in one way or another throughout history. And knowing that public speaking and our roles in society should strengthen and help ensure this doesn't happen, should motivate us to take steps to, again, be a voice for the voiceless and improve our democratic society so that it is open to everyone, so that everyone can live free. So, we must continually take steps to educate ourselves and to avoid what we call ethnocentrism, right? This belief that one's own culture or group is superior to all others, right? And take steps to respect diverse cultures, beliefs, and values, and to adapt and grow our own cultural competency. And so, again, through this class, what we learn in this class is preparing you to go forth and be more interculturally competent in your lives, in your places of work, in your families. So this all comes down to how do you live these things out on a day-to-day basis? How do you live these things out week to week, month to month? And the way in which, or one of the ways in which we can best kind of succinctly identify that is through writing personal mission statements. And as I mentioned, I think briefly before, you can have multiple mission statements. You can have them tailored to different aspects of your life, right? So I have a mission statement as a spouse. I have a mission statement as an educator. I had a mission statement as an administrator. And so you can tailor it to different parts of your life based on the roles that you have. But essentially, it's a way to, succinctly condense down into a sentence, one sentence to 4 sentences, really, what your mission is, and then how you want to live that out. And so, as a result, I shared the worksheet with you, and hopefully you had some time to dive into that. Excuse me. And so now I want us to take what we've learned and apply it, and we have to do that through these mission statements. And so what I'd like for us to do, similar to previous, or like our self-introduction speech, I just want you to stand up at your seat and share your personal mission statement. You may have it electronically, you may have it written out, or you may have written it on the worksheet. All is acceptable. Again, this isn't a formal speech, but it's just, again, another opportunity to stand up and practice what we're learning. Once we leave talking about personal mission statements, we'll transition into learning about special occasion speeches. And so we'll actually learn how to start using the template and start writing speeches. And then once we establish how to write speeches, then we transition into how to deliver them. But for now, we've not learned about those things in detail, so it's not expected that you necessarily have that mastered. So, with that being said, I think we've gone from the front to the back. Have we gone from the back to the front before? So we can start with Cassie, and then we'll just work our way up here, and then we'll cross the aisle to Dakota and work our way to the back. So kind of snake around here like that, and Ramon will wrap us up to conclude. And so as people share their personal mission statements, make sure you give your undivided attention. Once they are concluded, say thank you once you are done speaking. So that's our cue as the audience to start clapping. And again, we're a small group, so try to fill the room with our applause, right? It takes a level of courage to stand up and speak. Again, we all get those butterflies, but part of this class is as we do this week to week, those butterflies are going to be a little easier to manage. So again, that's part of the process of developing our public speaking skills. So, Cassie, kick us off.
Hi, good afternoon. My mission is to form and join or observe integrity between creativity and safetiness with younger girls in elementary school. So yeah, I want to make them feel like they are welcome and they could be able to speak out whenever they want to.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Great. Thank you. Beautiful.
Hey, good evening. My mission is to encourage collaboration between people with different backgrounds and facilitate a culture of open-mindedness, just because people kind of have a tendency to shut down once they're confronted with logic patterns that are different from theirs. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of an important thing.
That's great. Thank you. Awesome. Great. Thank you. All right. Awesome. Beautiful.
Hi. My mission is to improve the health of our environment. By improving the health of our environment, we will provide and leave our children with a better world, and I think that's important.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you. Awesome.
Going back over here.
Hi. My mission is to create a contagious drive of self-worth and gratitude among my peers, to be an example of self-driven independence among youth, and to bring excitement about education and encourage others to take full advantage of it at any age. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dakota.
I guess I was kind of confused, and I know. I just wrote, my mission is to teach children how to be more compassionate towards other children, or encourage children or individuals with family issues to seek therapy.
Yes, really great. Thank you. That's great. Yeah.
Hello. My personal mission statement is to help all those undocumented students to success on their American dream and be successful in life.
Awesome. Great. Beautiful. Wonderful. All right. Thank you all. Thank you so much. You can take a deep breath, a sigh of relief. You've done it, right? You just completed another practice speech. So kudos. So that now is complete. So if you would, make sure you include you type it up or take a photo of it, upload it to Brightspace before class on Wednesday, and then I'll go in during my office hours and update those grades. So awesome. Let me transition to, here we go, special occasion speeches, 12722. Here we go. So special occasion speaking is essentially what we've done, right? We've done two practice speeches, the self-introduction, the personal mission statement practice speech. Next, we will do the classmate introduction practice speech. And in order to prepare us for that, I want to talk a little bit about special occasion speaking. We're going to look at some examples of special occasion speeches, and then we're going to take a look at the outline template for you to use when writing your classmate introduction speech. Now, classmate introduction speeches are usually done week 3 of the course, so for us that will be next week. We want to go ahead and start preparing for it. So as we start preparing, if you would, I'm going to pass out these note cards, and write your name and your email address, and if you want to, your phone number. And I'll collect these and essentially distribute them. We essentially do it at random, and this will then assign you to your person that you will then meet and talk to and get to know. Essentially, we do like an exchange. And so this was a contact card essentially, so that if you need to exchange any information outside of here, you know how to go about doing that. But again, I'll provide you time in class on Wednesday to actually meet with your partner, and we'll have about 10 minutes or so where you can meet them and get to know them. So, but again, some people are like, can you just type up your responses to the prompts and just email it to me, in which case that would be acceptable as well. So I'll pull up that assignment because there are a couple prompts that you want to make sure you ask your classmate partner, and so we'll get to all that on Wednesday. Right now, we just want to focus on special occasion speaking, but do make sure in preparation for those assignments, you write your name. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we will have one group of 3. As well. For any groups of 3, usually person 1 introduces person 2, person 2 introduces person 3, person 3 introduces person 1. So we will have, since we have an odd number, we will have a group of 3. So let's focus on special occasion speaking. Like I said, we'll look at some examples, and then we will talk about the outline specifically. So we start off with fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. My fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. So we have Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address in 1863, John F. Kennedy's presidential inaugural address in 1961, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech at the Lincoln Memorial during the 1963 March on Washington. These are some of the most memorable words that have come throughout history, and these have all happened and are considered special occasion speeches. So from introducing a new colleague at work to delivering a toast at a friend's wedding or a eulogy at a family member's funeral, there are many times in our lives where we may be called upon to deliver a special occasion speech. There are many times in our lives when we will attend or participate in special occasion speeches, such as graduation ceremonies or funeral ceremonies. Again, some of the most memorable sayings and quotes and inspirational messages have come from ceremonies like commencement ceremonies. But more practically speaking, in our everyday lives, we may be engaged in speeches of introduction at work, where we may be asked to introduce a new colleague to the rest of the group. We may have to introduce a family member to our family, right, or a new partner or friend to our families, right? So the skills that we develop while we may not be doing a formal speech, the guidelines of writing these types of speeches can help us prepare some of those remarks that are a part of our everyday lives. And so I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about special occasion speeches. I want to talk about what's unique specifically about special occasion speeches, what makes them unique, and the types of special occasion speeches that we have. We're going to look at some examples, and then we'll look at the template that I've designed, the Professor Martin method of public speaking, the template that I've designed that we'll use specifically in the speeches for this course. So let's start by talking about what is unique. So the uniqueness of special occasion speeches. So many special occasion speeches involve some sort of public speaking. Sorry, I should say many special occasions involve some sort of public speaking. Ceremonies, right, like such as weddings, funerals, dedications, often involve speeches. And these speeches are part of what makes the occasion special. And so the primary purpose of a special occasion speech is neither to inform or to persuade, but to fulfill the needs of the occasion. So there may be information, there may be persuasive elements. However, the focus, the aim of a persuasive speech is to identify the needs of the situation and the context and to design a speech that meets those needs. When we learn about informative speaking, the purpose of an informative speech is to inform, is to teach. When we learn about persuasive speeches, it's to persuade someone to agree or disagree. For special occasion speeches, the purpose is to fulfill the needs of the occasion. So you, as the speaker, have to identify the needs of that situation, of that context. And so you have to ask yourself, is there a need to celebrate? Is that the purpose of this speech, to celebrate someone or an idea? Is the need to entertain? Maybe it's just to entertain an audience as maybe a keynote speaker or motivational speaker. Is it to inspire? Is it to give thanks for someone, like at a funeral, or at a retirement celebration? Or is it a need to remember, to honor, or to remember? So it is for you to determine the words that are needed for this special occasion speech, which makes it unique because, again, informative speeches, we know the purpose is to inform. Persuasive speeches, the purpose is to persuade. But special occasion speeches may include information. They may be persuasive, but the purpose you have to identify. So to celebrate, to entertain, to inspire, to give thanks, to remember are all potential possibilities of the needs of a special occasion speech. So let's talk about the types of special occasion speeches, and then we're going to watch a couple examples. I'm going to skip some examples just for the sake of time, and I'll post those links on, at least the links that I have that are public links, I'll post on Brightspace. So let's start with the first type of introduction, and this is, or type of special occasion speech, and that's the speech that we're going to do in this class, the speech of introduction. Now, you've already done a short self-introduction. You've introduced us to an idea, your personal mission statement. Next, you'll introduce us to someone else. And so, an introduction speech or speech of introduction usually introduces someone or an idea to an audience, and it usually builds enthusiasm for the speaker. It generates interest for the topic and establishes a welcoming climate. It usually is very brief. Usually it's adapted to the occasion. right? So if you're doing it at a formal banquet versus with colleagues at work, right? We adapt it to those specific occasions, and it's adapted to the main speaker, the person you are introducing, so you don't give the same introduction of multiple people. So the speech of introduction, like I said, is one that we'll practice, and I want us to watch a couple examples. The first example is actually an example of a self-introduction speech, a formal self-introduction speech. We did informal self-introduction speeches, but this is a formal self-introduction speech, and I want you to watch it because I feel like it's particularly relevant, the specific examples that she provides in her speech. I want you to pay attention to the story, the narrative that she shares. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about finding the story, finding the narrative, and then sharing information or concepts through that story and through that narrative, which she does skillfully in this self-introduction. So I want you to listen to that, listen for those examples that she provides. See if you can recognize the values that she is conveying to us through this story. See if you can identify the things that she values through the story she is sharing. So let's listen. Change the audio to okay. Let's try turning here. Okay, all right, I didn't test this today before selecting it. Sound, clear voice speaker, play. Well,
about the roses and the other.
sorry, one moment, my apologies. Nope. I don't know why it worked one night but doesn't work tonight.
When I look at this photo, I think of lemons, peaches, and guava.
All right, let's go through here.
When I look at this photo, I think of lemons, peaches, and guava. I think of lush green trees and bright red roses. I think of good food and joyous celebrations, birthdays, weddings, holidays. This courtyard is where my grandmother lived and taught me about my Mexican heritage. Even though I was born in the US and have lived here all my life, the courtyard is very meaningful to me. It has helped me to understand the importance of family and the cultures that have shaped my life. The courtyard symbolizes the importance of family in my life. It's located in a small town in Mexico where both my parents were born and raised. I first visited the courtyard when I was 5 years old, and I will never forget the meals or my grandmother's love. Over the years, she taught me to dance to mariachi music in the courtyard, about the roses and the other flowers, and she told me the story when my father asked for my mother's hand in marriage in that very courtyard. In addition to family, the courtyard symbolizes the different cultures that have shaped my life. Whenever we went to Mexico, my parents lit up because it felt like home to them, but not to me. Sometimes I felt out of place, especially because I was born in the US and my Spanish is not perfect. That led me to wonder who I am and how I should identify. With friends here, I sometimes feel too Mexican, but in Mexico, I definitely feel American. I don't think I ever got over these feelings, but I've learned to accept them. So, even though now I'm a student here at Wisconsin, when I look at this photo, I can practically smell the roses and hear the joy of family celebrations. And I miss my grandmother. She died 2 years ago, but I can still see her face and hear her voice. And I remember all the things she taught me on the tiled floor by the fountain. Now, I proudly call the US home, but when I look at this photo, I will always think of my grandmother and my home away from home. Thank you.
So here we have a skillful use of story, of narrative, conveying the values of family, right? The values of cultural heritage, right? Of immigrating to the United States, at least her family, her parents doing that. And so again, she didn't directly state those things, but through the story, through the narrative, sharing about herself and who she is. The next example I want to share is an example of a classmate introduction speech. So this is along the lines of what you will be doing next week. And the classmate introduction speeches, specifically this example, again, uses story, uses stories about the person to share with us a little bit about who they are and what they value. It's important that when you interview your classmate partner for your classmate introductions, that as you're asking questions, as you're getting to know them, you verify, hey, is this okay for me to share this information about you in your speech? Because some stories may be shared, they may not want shared with the rest of the class. And you'll see that the story that she shares in this video may be one that some people may be like, oh no, I wouldn't want that shared about me. But again, as long as you confirm and verify, okay, yes, this story is appropriate to share, then it's okay. And so again, see if you can recognize the values or the parts of this person's identity that is shared by the speaker. Because again, they're introducing someone that they've met. And so see if you can identify how they go about sharing with us who they are through the examples they provide and the narratives that they share.
Fear, monsters, the unknown. We all know what it's like to be scared. Our classmate Bella certainly does. Ever since she can remember, she's had night terrors. Dreams so vivid and so real that she'll wake herself up in a panic. Once, she even fell out of bed and rammed her chin into a dresser. That's Bella at night. But during the day, she's completely different. She's fearless. She's fearless in athletics, she's fearless in travel, and she's fearless in seizing new opportunities. Bella is fearless when it comes to athletics. In high school, she played on her varsity soccer team for 3 years. That's impressive considering her team won state championships her junior and senior year. On the soccer field, Bella is a midfielder, which means she uses a lot of endurance. Outside the soccer field, she uses her endurance to run marathons. Athletics give Bella bravery. Bravery that she uses in other parts of her life. Other parts, like travel. When she was 7, she traveled to Italy for a family reunion and loved every second of it. Last year, she went to New York and the Dominican Republic, where she participated in alternative spring break. This year, she's going on alternative spring break again, this time in New Orleans. Wherever she travels, Bella looks to expand her horizons. She also looks to expand her horizons by seizing whatever opportunities, large or small, come her way. For example, Bella grew up in Minnesota and often went to the state fair where she tried unusual foods, like deep fried butter. In her junior year of high school, she tried being a vegetarian, but that failed miserably. Here at Wisconsin, She wants to be a business major, even though she has no idea exactly what she wants to do with her life. Soon, she plans on joining a sorority and starting a flag football team. Whatever it may be, Bella will be open-minded and sees what life has to offer. An amazing athlete, a seasoned traveler, an open-minded and adventurous person. That's Bella. She's fearless. Except when it comes to the occasional night terror.
All right, so as you heard, an example, right, of sharing narratives, sharing stories, sharing a little bit about someone through those examples. And that's precisely what we're looking for in the classmate introduction speeches for this class. In a minute, we'll learn about some additional strategies and techniques that President Obama used prior to being elected president that we can use in our speeches, some of which were modeled there. But before we do that, let's just talk about a couple other types of speeches, because you may, in your life, have to deliver one or the other. And again, these examples I'll post on Brightspace, so we won't watch them in this class specifically. The first is going to be the speech of presentation. So this is a speech that's given when someone receives a gift or an award. These are usually brief, and the main purpose is to explain why the recipient is receiving the gift or the award. It usually discusses their achievements and in some kind of meaningful way for the audience. Now this example, that again I'll post it on Brightspace, comes from an organization called Toastmasters International. Anybody heard of Toastmasters International before? Okay, yes. The hands dwindle over time. Slowly but surely every year I feel like fewer and fewer people have heard of them. They're a fabulous organization, specifically if you're looking at developing your professional speaking and leadership development skills. Because they're for professionals. They are an international organization, and usually when you get involved, you select one or the other tracks. You have a public speaking track and a leadership track. Public speaking track, you do a series of speeches to earn like a certificate. And this person here is doing a speech of presentation or presenting an award to someone in order to check those boxes to achieve that certification. And they coach you along the way, and so you're developing these public speaking skills. A lot of us who are in the world of public speaking education have been a part of Toastmasters, and a lot of the way we teach actually models similar speeches that you would do in Toastmasters. So hey, you could even use some of your speeches in this class to complete those assignments. I know I did. My speech class, I did 5 ingredients for effective leadership was my informative speech when I was in college for my public speaking class, and I used that 15 years later when I joined Toastmasters and had to do an informative speech. So anyway, it's a great organization. There's also the leadership track where you serve in different leadership positions and develop that skill. So again, it's a good organization made up with people from a variety of backgrounds. So if at any point in your life you're like, yeah, I think I want to further develop my professional skills, take a look for your local Toastmasters club. So that's a speech of presentation. Again, this is a good example of someone giving a speech of presentation, but I'll post that online should you want to watch it. The other is going to be a speech of acceptance, and so this is going to be if you are accepting the gift or the award. So usually in a speech of acceptance, you're showing thanks and appreciation for receiving the gift. You're acknowledging anyone that's helped you receive the gift or win the award. And if it's won as a part of a competition, then you should make sure you praise the other competitors. Some of the most common, you might be like, what am I going to give a speech of acceptance or what am I going to give a speech of presentation? Some of the most common, at least professional awards are like Employee of the Month awards, right? Where your supervisor may ask you, hey, can you give this Employee of the Month award? Or maybe if you're the supervisor, right, it's your responsibility to give this award and say a few words. Or if you're receiving the Employee of the Month award, right, then you may be asked to say a few words like speech, right? It's kind of common for you to say somewhere. So again, these are part of our everyday professional lives, but just keep in mind some etiquette. The etiquette is if you've won it as a part of a competition that you mention and praise the other competitors. The example I have is from Malala Yousafzai, who was a Nobel Peace Prize winner and wrote a beautiful book called I Am Malala. when I was working at Washington State University, we had it as our common reading one year, and had her come and speak. And just a amazing story of resilience and courage. She was shot in the face by the Taliban for going to school, where at that point in time women were, it was against the law for them to go to school. So anyway, beautiful acceptance speech of her receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, where she acknowledges some of the other people in the room that helped her get there. She incorporates a lot of humor. She talks about how she's probably the only Nobel Peace Prize winner who still fights with her brothers, because again, she's the youngest Nobel Peace Prize winner. So again, does a skillful job, and I'll post this link on Brightspace. It's a short but fun video to watch. So then we have the other kind of main speech that I wanted to talk about today, and that is the commemorative speech. The textbook may also call it a ceremonial speech or didactic speech, is what Aristotle would have called it. And this is a speech that really pays tribute to a person or to a group of people. You could pay tribute to an institution or to an idea. But the purpose of a commemorative speech is to inspire the audience and to heighten their admiration for that person, that institution, that idea, and to praise that person. And so, it may present information about a topic. So some people are like, well, why isn't it considered informative? Or again, it may involve persuasive elements like logos, ethos, and pathos. But again, the goal is to pay tribute to a person, a group of people, or an institution. And so that makes it a little bit different than an informative speech. Because an informative speech, the aim is to inform. Commemorative speech is to express feelings and arouse sentiments. Informative speech, you just communicate information clearly and accurately without invoking emotions. And some of the most memorable speeches throughout history are commemorative addresses that we continue to find meaningful because of their eloquent expressions. They use stylistic devices, such as those that we're going to learn about, such as imagery, rhythm, and the creativity of their speech. Like the quotes I referenced earlier from Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., those are the most popular ones, but again, these can be everyday speeches like toasts, right? At a wedding or a company dinner and having to stand up and say a few words. Tribute speeches like a eulogy or keynote speeches at a conference and convention. You may not necessarily be called upon to speak before thousands of people, but you may be called upon to speak before small groups of people still doing these type of things. Now, the video that I want us to watch actually is not so much the speech itself, but it's an insightful look at this speech. And they reference some strategies, some techniques that President Obama uses. And again, this is prior to him being elected president. And in 2004, people outside of Illinois didn't know who this guy was. And so in 2004, he spoke at the end of the 2004 Democratic National Convention. And this really put him on the map, at least nationally. And a lot of people say that this video or this speech is what essentially got him elected because of its persuasiveness, because of its sincerity. And so I want us to watch this, and I want you to make note of some of the strategies and the techniques that they reference, that they say he does this, right? They're going to talk about a variety of things that he does and show clips of the speech. And so again, while we watch this, make note of the strategies that they're talking about, because all of the strategies they talk about here, we can go ahead and utilize in our classmate introduction speeches and moving forward in every speech after that. So listen to that, and I'll ask which ones stand out to you after the video concludes.
Barack Obama in 2004 was totally unknown. People were saying, I don't know who this guy is. I wonder why they picked him.
He had his reputation as a bit of an upstart, as sort of a young, rising figure in the party, but no one knew who this guy was. This was his chance to introduce himself to people.
Tonight is a particular honor for me because, let's face it, my presence on this stage is pretty unlikely. My father was a foreign student, born and raised in a small village in Kenya.
What makes a great political speech is if you can somehow fold your story into this larger American story.
The next thing he says is about his mother's family. His grandfather fought in World War II. He used the GI Bill. They settled in Kansas, so white people could say, he's just like us.
My parents shared not only an improbable love, they shared an abiding faith in the possibilities of this nation. I stand here knowing that my story is part of the larger American story, that I owe a debt to all of those who came before me, and that in no other country on earth is my story even possible.
Going into this speech, we've had 4 years of George Bush, and we felt as a country like we've grown further apart.
2004 was very much a divisive partisan race. Obama's speech is in some ways an antidote to that.
Alongside our famous individualism, there's another ingredient in the American saga, a belief that we're all connected as one people. If there is a child on the south side of Chicago who can't read, that matters to me even if it's not my child. If there's a senior citizen somewhere who can't pay for their prescription drugs and having to choose between medicine and the rent, that makes my life poorer even if it's not my grandparent. It is that fundamental belief, I am my brother's keeper, I am my sister's keeper, that makes this country work. E pluribus unum, out of many, one.
He gives a speech that presages his entire political message in 2008, which is this sort of post-partisan argument.
Now, even as we speak, there are those who are preparing to divide us. The spin masters, the negative ad peddlers, who embrace the politics of anything goes. Well, I say to them tonight, there is not a liberal America and a conservative America. There is the United States of America.
Obama was born with two great gifts. One is his mind, and the other is his ability to speak to large groups of people.
There are three things that Obama does that really makes that speech effective. He wants concrete detail. He likes story, and he loves antithesis, the use of repetition and structure to show contrast. There is not a liberal America or a conservative America. There is one America.
There is not a black America and a white America and Latino America and Asian America. There's the United States of America. The pundits like to slice and dice our country into red states and blue states, but I've got news for them too. We worship an awesome God in the blue states, and we don't like federal agents poking around in our libraries in the red states. We coach Little League in the blue states, and yes, we've got some gay friends in the red states. We are one people, all of us pledging allegiance to the Stars and Stripes, all of us defending the United States of America.
The way he uses his hands, he actually points a lot and does a lot of this, a lot of this, a lot of that.
In doing so, he gives off this sense of energy. I am new. I'm someone who is dynamic.
And he doesn't do that so much anymore. He's a little more solemn and reserved when he gives speeches today, but I think it's more reflective of his office.
In the end, that's what this election is about. Do we participate in a politics of cynicism, or do we participate in a politics of hope? It's the hope of slaves sitting around a fire singing freedom songs. The hope of immigrants setting out for distant shores. The hope of a young naval lieutenant bravely patrolling the Mekong Delta. The hope of a mill worker's son who dares to defy the odds. The hope of a skinny kid with a funny name who believes that America has a place for him too. Hope in the face of difficulty. Hope in the face of uncertainty. The audacity of hope.
His appearance at that convention, which was the best speech of the convention, better than John Kerry's, was electrifying, and without it, he wouldn't be president.
I think sincerity means a lot. There are people who, when they speak the truth as they see it, and they're very effective doing that.
I believe this country will reclaim its promise, and out of this long political darkness, a brighter day will come. Thank you very much, everybody. God bless you.
So, what stood out to you? What were some of the techniques that they talked about him using? Let me grab my marker and write it up on the board. So just holler them out.
He used his hands a lot.
Yes, strong gestures. Yes. Which we'll dive more into when we get to delivery techniques. Awesome. What else?
You did repetition a lot for
That's
contrast.
right. That's right. Antithesis. Yes. Awesome. What else?
Relatable.
Yeah, he is relatable. He's finding common ground, right? We call that rapport. And we'll talk about on Wednesday the fact that we incorporate that into our speeches. Actually, as part of the attention step, we have a rapport step where we do that. We try to establish rapport and be relatable to our audience. So awesome. What else? Any others? So you mentioned Obama does three things, or he likes to do three things in his speeches. He likes concrete detail, right? So very specific examples. He likes story, right? And we're going to come back to that over and over, finding the story, the narrative. And then, what was the third one? The third one was antithesis, right? Repetition. So that are all things that we can incorporate, starting with our classmate introductions. All things that we can do is finding good examples, which we heard, and we heard some good examples in the two introduction speeches we listened to. Finding the story, using that antithesis, using gestures. Practice doing it when you give your classmate introduction speech. Again, we'll dive more into gestures and nonverbal delivery later in the semester, but for right now, just practice doing those things like what we saw in those speeches. So and as my screen's been flipping back and forth here, this is what we're going to talk about on Wednesday. We're going to dive into each part of this outline because this establishes the foundation of using this outline moving forward. The special occasion speech, the informative speech, the persuasive speech, will all use these outlines just with some minor changes. So that's where we'll pick up on Wednesday. We'll also give you time to connect with your people and whoever it is you are interviewing. So let's do this here. Yep, that's perfect. Yep, so we're just going to have you all swap. Yep, so, and we'll have you swap, because she's not here today, but she should be here. So you're going to be our group of three, right here. There you go. All right. And I'll give this to Marie. So we'll have, on Wednesday, when you get to class, you may have the same person, or for our other group, you may have a different person, where you have multiple people. On Wednesday, I'll give you time in class to connect with that person, and we can have our group of 3 or 4, or a group of 2 and a group of 4 sit. You can move the chairs around and sit and talk with each other. I'll pull up the assignment instructions. Classmate assignment essentially includes asking 2 prompts. What's an issue that they are a problem in our community that they're passionate about seeing fixed? And then how do they want to go about being a part of fixing that problem? But then you ask other questions as well, right, to get to know about them and their background. And you'll design just a short, no more than 2-minute classmate introduction with that information. So on Wednesday, we'll give you time to connect with that person. Again, you may have to swap some information outside of class, but at least you'll get to start that conversation here. and then we'll give you time, or we'll dive into the different parts of our speech outline. All right. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you all on Wednesday.